In the bottom right of hard lead or hard lead. It's up to you. It is DKZ's herO. In the top left, we have the teamless Terran GuMiHo. He gets a zoom because he's teamless. So we have our TVP finally, which was one of the biggest issues leading up to the patch. In my personal opinion, it really wasn't that big of an issue. Protoss was underrepresented when it came to the later stages of major tournaments, and I do sympathize with them. I think they needed something. Certainly, they needed to nerf the Terran Raven timing, which was being handled by some of the best Protoss with surprising effectiveness, but was still overall too big of a power spike that kind of led into further opportunities for the Terran player. The only Protoss who was really dealing with everything seemingly okay was MaxPax, and that's mostly because he's aggressive before those things happened. herO, as an aggressive Protoss, you would think would have similar results, but he's also... A lot of Protoss have been struggling, right? So that was one of the only concerns, really. Protoss not represented in the finals, semifinals, round of 8 sometimes. We'd like that to be happening more. Great, fantastic. Everyone pretty much agreed on that. Race representation for the top 8 of a tournament. Everyone wants all 3. Raven timing, probably a little too strong. That was a problem of the last patch, actually. And while it was basically kind of smoothed over and we lived and it's not the worst games you've ever seen, it was a problem. So they went for the Raven change, with the interference matrix now needing to be upgraded. But then they didn't really give Protoss a lot of other things. They said that disruptors are far too depended on in the late game. And then they nerfed the disruptor and didn't give them any alternative. Some would argue the Storm is the new alternative because the EMP of Terran's Ghost has now been nerfed. So now Protoss could get Storms a little bit easier. And maybe they'll get Storms in the mid game as a build and then actually use them in the late game. I have my concerns about that. One, they actually were already using Storm in the mid game. We saw a lot of experimentation from Protoss players, especially from, it feels like, Creator and Classic when it came to using Storm after the 2 base 4 gas setup, which was cool. You know, Protoss weren't just giving up, they were trying to experiment. So I'm not sure the change of the Ghost EMP is going to change that dynamic. And I'm afraid some of the public will see a couple of Storm openers and be like, oh, because the patch works. The patch did the thing. And it's like, well, no, they've already doing that. But then, too, I don't really believe that Storm will still be the best secondary or tertiary form of splash in the late game. Because even though the EMP has been nerfed, I still find it a far more effective direct counter spell to the Storm. It's very difficult for the highest skill level Terran micro to not win out against the highest skill level micro of the Storm player, you know what I mean? I think we had a lot of beautiful dynamics back in 2011, like Parting versus Marine King Prime on the BS GSTL finals. That was beautiful. But then it's been 12 years and people have gotten a lot better. So that's where I'm at as we watch a typical TVP opener go underway. That's kind of my main concern, is that the Terran player might not have such a big power spike with the Raven. Okay, great. But does Protoss actually have that successful mid to late game kind of situation going for them? I don't know. Their shield upgrade's cheaper, and their sentry's better, and their immortal's better, especially because the bug benefits the immortal. But I really don't know. I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to believe that the patch fixed this, you know? And not that fixing it is easy, it just... The patch didn't address this primarily because they decided to throw the fucking Cyclone in as a, you know, how about this? Like, it's like, why? I'm not gonna get into it. I'm not gonna rant about it. We do have Blink opener for herO into the 2 base Colossus setup. And it is Colossus indeed. Robotics Bay is on the way. GuMiHo has not bothered with the Raven this particular game. He did open with a very typical opener of 1-1-1 with the Cyclone for defensive purposes, which is still good enough as a defensive unit. It doesn't kill an Oracle almost guaranteed if herO opened a Stargate, but it's still good enough as a defensive unit. And now he's just gone into what seems to be a medevac drop and then leaving his Marines at home. The Stalkers do have Blink in the nick of time to go for this harassment, and they do outrange Marines, so the Sim would have to be popped, which Sim is not even done. And herO is getting little bits of chip damage, but the 4 Widow Mines are headed across the map. herO scouted that. Does he actually prepare for it? Stalkers, a couple of them on the left side. Do manage to intercept, but they don't stop. Recall is used on the Stalkers. GuMiHo did not catch that, unfortunately. And the Widow Mines do manage to unload 3 of them in the natural, of which they all get some shot, I guess. 4 probes go down so far. Main base. Main base. Main base is fine. And far. Oh, the targeting reticle is a little bit larger. Shit. Nah, that's pretty much one of the better case defensive scenarios for the Protoss. 4 Widow Mines, 4 probes would have been the ideal, but it is what it is. Number 1, Colossus. You're the best, dude. He's out. He's ready to tango. He's not going to get interference matrix. He's feeling good about his life. Feel better if Extended Thermal Lance was done. And they gave him additional upgrade, too. You feel really good about that. They didn't throw out the visibility change. They couldn't do it. The programming didn't work out with it. Well, they wouldn't explain to us why they couldn't do it, because they don't explain anything to us. The communication has been so incredibly poor. Why I'm disappointed. No one really delivering any fatal blow to each other. We head into a pretty even TVP 3-base versus 3-base scenario. herO finishes up his Extended Thermal Lance. +1 will soon finish. And charge is about halfway done. Certainly will be finished before GuMiHo makes it halfway across the map. And herO has plenty of scouting on the halfway line. Xel'Naga is taken by the Protoss observer in the middle, in case the rocks are broken down. GuMiHo with far less scouting is just playing the defensive setup now. Tank sieged up, so producing those. Really his only line of defense against a potential Colossus attack, since he has yet to go into Vikings. 4 Marauders at a time will eventually give him that very hefty ground force, tanks or no. But he's not quite there yet. If 3 Colossus were to walk across the map, the tanks would be the only real defensive unit. Marines would get barbecued. The hero's not even bothering to do that, which I think he could. He could kind of skirt around and you know, puff up his feathers, be a little scary, but not going to bother doing that. He's very content, I think, with his position in this game. 3-base setup, cleanly. No Terran shenanigans. 4th base on the way, and the map vision is entirely his. No contest from the Terran player. That's a good feeling for Protoss. You basically don't have to worry about any form of harassment. Literally, with the setup of scouting herO has, there is no way that GuMiHo gets units across the map without his knowledge. That's kind of crazy. It's not usually the Protoss setup we see. I mean, maybe they get the Xel'Nagas, but then to have everything else so perfectly positioned. It's clear that GuMiHo wasn't going to try and go for an overwhelming number of basic bio units that some other Terrans would have. He went back home, he defended, and now he's just waiting until he gets his perfect Terran army. Ghosts, Vikings, higher tank counts all together with the 4th CC as a planetary, and then maybe we'll see some rumble-tumble. No one really particularly eager to engage. Stalker's looking for a snipe, and they get a ghost. That's pretty good. They get EMP'd, but it's still going to take a little while for GuMiHo to really engage. So, no problem. Shield battery there anyway. Rocks will be broken down. Open up that opportunity for GuMiHo to engage. Only 4 Vikings. Not a tremendous amount. Make that 3. Another successful snipe from the Stalkers. herO supply looking fine. His upgrades looking better than his opponents. And GuMiHo would be good not to overstep. He's got to be wary. Zealots enter into the natural. GuMiHo quick to respond to this while still staying on the front lines. Right now, the tanks in position are quite scary for herO, but if he builds up his charge lock count and takes a different approach, different angles, I think it'll be very reasonable for him to take an engagement. Upgrades have evened up once again. Maybe he'll wait for +1 armor. If he chronos that, he's definitely going to be ahead of the +1 armor of his opponent, and he is chronoing it, so that could be the timing. herO will max out with 2-1 upgrades compared to GuMiHo's +2. He'll have maybe even upwards of 3 directions of attacks on top of the tanks. It's only going to be 2 directions. Up there we go. The 3rd direction is here. Stalkers on the back line as well. The tanks are still firing mostly at the front. EMPs, I imagine, did go down to the Archons. They just popped, but that's still 3 Colossus gunning down mostly the Marines. 2 Immortals barely surviving the ordeal, maybe because they're bugged. The shield battery was able to help out, but that didn't really end up being the tri-pronged attack I think that herO was hoping for. Those Stalkers weren't as significant in their approach as perhaps one would want. It looks like it might still be good enough. The probe pull probably unnecessary. The Colossus damage output good enough to deal with the Marines before they ended up dying. And then the Stalkers can clean up the Vikings and the Medivacs, at least 1 or 2 of them, as the Terran retreats. So yeah, maybe the probe pull wasn't necessary, but it is the choice that herO made, and now he needs to rebuild those. Even after 17 probe losses, he's only down by 10, so, you know, probably okay. The real gut punch is that herO lost so many expensive Colossus. It's going to take a little while for him to rebuild that, whereas GuMiHo is obviously going to be quicker to rebuilding basic bio. herO is working off of only 1 robo, too, so that's less than ideal. 3-2 starts up for the Protoss, 3-2 on the way already for the Terran. DTs, however, were actually the initial round of reinforcements after the engagement. 8 of them getting on top of a planetary that only just finished and has no detection anyway, so they're going to body block the SCVs from getting that full repair regardless. They didn't even need to blink on top. In fact, they end up blinking out, and that ends up being the maneuver to make up for everything that herO just took in damage. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? That just, and that just, of course, reminded GuMiHo that they're present on the field. GuMiHo will always have to worry about the DTs. herO now with a supply lead, too. He's built up his probe count again. He's getting to a 2nd Colossus. Finally getting to a 2nd Robo, too. A little bit more on the front lines. 5th Nexus on the way. GuMiHo still only at home. Something that herO is able to check with his Observer, as well as with his Stalkers. Pretty good about making sure that they're on the offensive, scouting, and harassing. Observer does go down, but herO's map control is still there every which other way we look. Zealots on the left for the orbital, which is properly protected, I must say. That's not easy for Zealots to break. A DT is also on the right, turning into Archons, actually. Archons should be a little more effective with the EMP change. Overall, still, if you target Archons with EMP, it is effective, right? 2 EMPs, they pop like balloons. But it's not going to be as easy as, you know, it used to be blanketing the entire army back when it was the size of the sun, and then back before this patch, of course, too. And the amount of ghosts might not be high enough for GuMiHo anyway. Here come more on the left side. 2 Archons were depleted of their shields, yet barely hanging on. Everyone's upgrades finishing roughly around the same time. herO's +3 attack, 15 seconds away, I think. +1 shield's a little bit cheaper, hey-oh. GuMiHo in a lot of trouble, honestly. He's down 20 supply. His composition could be better. His concave's gonna be pretty great. No doubt about that, but, you know, without the Liberators helping out, I fear GuMiHo will not have the firepower. EMPs do pop the Archons, but here we even have a Disruptor making its presence known. Didn't actually do too much, mostly to force the Terran to micro, but then that is crowd control. And the rest of the Protoss army will tear everything down regardless. GG. herO will take game number 1. Did we really get a display of the patch there? Not really. But we might in the future games. In the bottom left, we have herO. In the top right, it is GuMiHo, and we are on Alcyone. Gonna have a word with the map makers and their naming schemes. I'd like a word. I can just imagine them finishing up the map and being like, what should I call it? I'm going to call it something that the people can't pronounce. This is how I'm going to tell the plebs from the intellectuals. Intellectuals. I do learn things from map names, to be fair. It's the brightest star in the Pleiades, named after one of the 7 sisters of the Pleiades in Greek mythology. See, there's another word I have to learn how to pronounce. 7 sisters were the daughters of Atlas and half-sisters of the Hyades. Alcyone was the sister who became the mother of Helios by Poseidon, the sea god. Great. Alcyone. They should put, like, Alcyone, quote, like, parentheses, the pronunciation on Google. L-E. That would be very helpful. herO loves his early probe harassment, so... Saw that probe immediately leave. I was not surprised. Yeah, it's the name of the star, and then I just read the backstory of why they named the star that they did. So it's a star, but it's also a Greek character. You know, as it goes, that's generally what stars and planets are named after. This probe, man. This probe, though. This probe's actually pretty excellent. GuMiHo went for a faster second supply depot, usually to stop further scouting and to confuse the Protoss as to whether or not it's a factory expand. But because the probe lived far longer than it should have, that was not an effective fake. That just messed up his command center timing. So that's pretty funny. That's a good probe. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Factory is on the way, but yes, the command center went down first. herO decides to follow up that excellent probe scout with a sentry, actually. He did make an adept first, but without really needing to do any follow-up scouting. With the adept, you could just wait for the hallucination. The hallucination will be timed to see whether GuMiHo is going, for instance, a 2-1-1 or a 1-1-1. Whether or not it sees what is being produced is another question, but it's very possible it will see what is being produced from all those facilities. It is going to be a second barracks, so this hallucination is really going to give herO a lot of intel. And for those who forgot, the last patch made the sentry produce faster. Sentry buffs. You go, little robot. Because this patch has its Guardian Shield last 2 seconds longer. That's a fake Oracle, which I think is smart, but you literally shoot it once and it takes an odd amount of damage and you go, oh, it's hallucination. So GuMiHo should not be panicked about this, even if he was, the Cyclone's almost out. It's just a good scout. This is a very little GuMiHo attack. I mean, he's the one who does this Marauder opener. herO, taking no shit, is like, I'm just gonna wall. F you. I hate you. Unfortunately, with hallucination, there's no force field to stop the units from entering into the main base. This means that maybe a couple of probes will die. Maybe more than a couple, honestly. 1 adept gonna go to respond. 3 probe kills. 4 probe kills in total. Lost mining time as well. I don't think herO wanted to go into a 4-gate. I'm not sure. No, I don't think he wanted to go in a 4-gate. The 4th gateway was purely to defend. Otherwise, of course, if he had let it finished, he would have been locked into his own natural. The Cyclone is not particularly good in that situation. In terms of being the one very microable core unit to early harassment or early defense, it is not that anymore. It's more of a massable unit than a crucial single tech unit. So GuMiHo is definitely playing that follow-up as if it's the old Cyclone. But even if it was the old Cyclone, that's a bit of a questionable follow-up, as herO's Blink obviously was finishing. So that was actually a very, very quick game. herO wins, and now is up 2-0 in this best of 5. In the bottom right, once again, it is the blue Protoss, herO. In the top left, we have the red Terran GuMiHo, this time on Oceanborn, our ocean map. I'm gonna show you guys how much my cat's falling off. His butt's falling off. Paulo's hogging all of the... or too much of the place, I guess. Apparently Ziggy's fine with that. Anyway. So what do we got going on here? GuMiHo going for 1-Rax expand. herO, no doubt, doing something completely normal, despite his probe harassment. GuMiHo's last game kind of was bad, almost from start to finish. The Reaper and Hellion getting in was the only good thing. But then dealing with even only a 3-gates attack is still kind of difficult. 3 gates pumping units every time they can still can be quite aggressive. GuMiHo didn't help his cause by continuing to be aggressive. And again, maybe expecting different things from the new Cyclone. But he started out that game with trying to fake factory expand only to be found out. So that's why I'm saying it's kind of bad from start to finish. Not ideal. And the probe is once again looking to be that obnoxious little pest, staying in the base far longer than it should. Double, triple, quadruple checking that it is not a second gas. You can factory expand off of 1 gas is the thing, though. So even if you... most of the time it's double gas factory expands, the probe should stay in as long as possible to make sure that it's not a factory expands reactor after Marine, then Hellions. Which is what GuMiHo could have been faking in the last game. But herO was there the entire time. And this time around, too, just staying put even until the probe's death, making sure it's not going to be some type of weird opener. I'm not rude. Oh, you haven't been involved in some of the right chats then. I'm definitely rude on my own stream. Nexus is indeed on the way as herO sends his first adept across the map. herO is going to be met with just a couple of Marines, which the adept wins against. It might not bother, because it's just going to kill the SCV and skedaddle, I think. Kill the SCV! Do it! Do it. That is one hell of a weak SCV. Alright, not gonna do it. Kind of missed the opportunity as soon as the SCV moved to the left, I suppose. And the SCV will even be saved. That's a second adept coming in, however, so I don't know if it will be saved. 2 more Marines will not combat 2 total adepts, even with 1 injured. And now the high ground also has been given vision, although he's not going to take advantage of it. The Cyclone is on the way, after all, faster than its previous iteration. And even if it's not the end-all, be-all single defensive early game units, it still is good enough to help against 2 adepts. If there's a proxy gateway warping in a couple of stalkers, that's a very different story. Even if there is an Oracle about to show up, that's also a different story. And the Oracle is on the way. We could have the 4 adepts that herO's built up tag along with the Oracle and try to overwhelm the defense of GuMiHo, especially if GuMiHo is still trying to go here, take this natural without a bunker. But he is building a bunker, so the opportunity to really overwhelm is not there as much, but you can bypass the bunker and still force some chaos, which I believe herO is going to be doing. Main base not going to happen again. GuMiHo only letting it happen once. That's kind of a weird shade. Only 3 really did shade. SCV's pulled preemptively to repair the Cyclone. He knew it was going to happen as soon as he saw the amount of units attempting to shade in. And so he was able to preempt and really figure out the order of operations of how he would defend, which goes swimmingly too. 3 SCVs do go down, but at a fair cost of herO, who had to warp in the 4 adepts. That, yeah, they were losing value. They weren't useful as the game goes on, but nonetheless. The 2 Oracles have yet to do very much either. Match versus a fake ZombieGrub on ladder. I actually was playing on my ZombieGrub account, to be fair, 2 days ago. 3 days ago. Something like that. But yeah, there are apparently people who fake being me. Thank you for the 300 bits, Nomadic Swiffa. So now we have triple Oracle here for herO, and that can overwhelm the new Cyclone. Even plural. 2 Cyclones will want to have their Marine buddies with them to ensure they will not die to triple Pulsar Beam. 2-1-1 setup yet again for GuMiHo. He's got his second Cyclone. Oh, wait, why did he build a tech lab on a factory? Well, he's going to build barracks on the tech lab anyway now, so whatever. 3 Oracles. Not going to try and deal with the Cyclones. They don't have to. They're just going to go right after the SCVs. Perhaps even unwilling to believe they got such a golden opportunity. Now they are just killing them, killing them, killing them, killing more of them, killing them, killing them. Killing all the SCVs. GuMiHo in a lot of trouble. herO, however, what does he have back at home? 3 Stalkers. No Warp Gate. Wait. herO forgot Warp Gate. Well, because triple Warp Gate would be fine defensively. Shield Battery Overcharge is activated on a very safe shield battery indeed. But it was, oh, that was the only pylon! Oh my god, the Artosisist of Artosis pylons has just killed herO. Oh my god. Warp Gate still not in play. Multiple units getting into the main base. More probes going down. And herO was on the verge of one of the quickest and cleanest 3-0s he could possibly get. But that pylon was a kick in the nuts. And now he's dead. herO is dead. DED. The Oracles did a tremendous amount of damage on this side of the map, but not as much. herO is down 16 workers. He is on triple Nexus, but if he was down 8 workers, I think this is recoverable, even when you account for 2 mules. Down 15 workers and combating 2 mules. I mean, clearly herO is not going to recover. He will finish up his blink. He still has an Oracle, I guess. But GuMiHo, good on him for noticing that pylon. I certainly did not. The Cyclone still doing just barely enough. Nice pickup there, and herO is just going to tap out. Oops. You know, herO did notice the single pylon, but just too late. Everything was building too late. And his Warp Gate was late. That was a trip at the finish line. What that was. But it means we get more TVP. GuMiHo not out of this yet. Game 4 will be on Golden Aura. The top left, it is herO. And the bottom right, it is GuMiHo. Barely surviving that one by the skin of his teeth. If that pylon did not depower literally everything, I don't think he does enough damage. The protected shield battery overcharge, the unsnipeable overcharge, was going to be too good. For that one pylon, man. Would have been particularly devastating emotionally if you ended up losing in that game as GuMiHo, because Warp Gate apparently was forgotten about. I could accept it was intentionally delayed to a certain amount. I could accept that, but I can't accept the time at that finished. I don't know about that one. I don't think that was on purpose. And now herO needs to try a little bit harder to actually win the specified finals. This is the finals of the KSL, which, by the way, has a Patreon, patreon.com/Korean StarCraft League. If you want to support the Korean players as well as watching such beautiful tournaments. If you really appreciate having such fast patch replays delivered, then you should give them a couple buccarinos. Another 1-rank expand from GuMiHo that herO will be very intent on confirming. herO has gone for a forward gateway into his Nexus after Cybernex core. So he is going to apply some pressure onto the guy who has been expanding fairly quickly every single time. Now, it looks like GuMiHo might just have figured out in that moment, okay, this guy has seen me do this most games. This probe has been so obnoxious. There's a possibility that herO gets aggressive against me. That's not insane to think. So GuMiHo getting the exact right game yet again, because it happened in his best 3 versus Dark, to do the build that he's done, to high ground expand, is perfect in this game. But it's completely blind. It's just a guess. It's just a very good guess. Had he had a low ground command center, this would have been a lot more trouble. He'd have a single Marine against a single Zealot. With the reactor still not done, it would have gotten chaotic very quickly. So good on GuMiHo, who is trying to survive in this best of 5. He will soon have 3 Marines and a Hellion, which will be enough to defeat the Adept and Zealots. A Stalker joining in might be a different issue. That's still coming across the map. You do usually want to repair this, Plativo. There you go. You should know that the Stalker is on the way. And thanks to the patch, you don't have to wait for a tech lab to get to the Cyclone. The Cyclone is a little bit worse as that single defensive unit, but it comes out quicker. A good save on the SCV. It's going to follow this defense up with a medevac drop. herO is going to go into Blink. That looks a bit only 2 gateways, so going to be expanding or getting up to high technology. Either option. Command center really doesn't have much to fear. This is not a proxy gate, which GuMiHo could figure out by the timing of each individual unit and amount of units as well. It's not just a 2 gate, it is going to be going up to 3, so herO could be committing to some pressure. 1 Stalker already died, Zealot's dead, Adept is dead, and only 1 Stalker will survive to tell the tale of a super bad trade. GuMiHo lost 0 units there, repairs up the units that did get injured, and carries on with his medevac drop of 7 Marines. Which is not really a lot. They don't have a lot of promise, but it's something. Oh, it is a 4 gate. He added on that 4th and final gateway. He is going to get super aggressive. GuMiHo goes into a Raven and will invest into the Interference Matrix upgrade. 50-50 additional resources. Really not the biggest commitment, but still worthwhile to mention as we are going to have an imminent Protoss attack. So 50-50 at minute 5 does not impact minute 10. But 50-50 at minute 5 as you are attacked at 5:15. I mean, that actually might impact you. Maybe that slightly later tank or 3rd barracks or whatever it is will actually affect your defensive setup. Maybe. Probably not. Probably not. But regardless, at this point in time, the Interference Matrix upgrade is not particularly useful. It's going to be an auto turret. That's the only thing the Raven can really help out with. I mean, well, maybe an Interference Matrix on the Warp Prism, to be fair. That can happen. Marines and 2 Cyclones will be the initial defense. That's not particularly powerful. Need that tank up and running. Great value Cyclone. Wish Cyclone. That tank is properly protected. herO not going to find the wiggle room he's hoping for in the natural, but the main base is still a potential target. That tank is in a very interesting area. I'm 90% sure Stalkers could attack it from here, and there'd be nothing to defend the tank. Or he could just come in from this direction, but then there was something defending the tank. 2 Ravens, 2 auto turrets. I guess one already came down, the other one didn't have enough energy. The other one's just choosing not to use it. 1 Raven will fall by the looks of things. Yeah, that's pretty much a goner. But 7 Stalkers have died in this attempted break of the Terran. Not really a good enough trade. Many weakened Stalkers as well, as the tank is sieged up once again. I can't help it. I'm gonna say it. If this was Max Packs, I think GuMiHo's already dead. That is just how much better Max Packs is at the 4 gate. Not that herO's not good, just one man, has one boy, has perfected the 4 gate. But at this point, it's clear that the snowball has not happened. herO should be moving on to his 3rd Nexus and trying to roll out of this macro-wise. It's going to be incredibly difficult, though, because it's the other thing that Max Packs is better than every other Protoss in the world at. Not just delivering the effectiveness of a 4 gate, but then also being able to macro out of it. herO is simply not as good. I'm just saying it. I'm just saying it, man. I know I'm going against 13 years of Korean bias, but it's the truth. And herO is my favorite player, even as he's a little bit worse than me. Templar Archives is going to be the option for the follow-up. Can be a surprise. Certainly a surprise storm on the first Terran attack would be very worth it. The single Raven is still available, so I guess there's that chance Interference Matrix could interrupt Warp Prism High Templar micro. It's only if GuMiHo figures out that that's what his opponent is following up with. Absolutely zero scouting from GuMiHo, basically, this entire game. His medevac harassment didn't get very far. And now we have, well, one of the tinier battles you could have happen. Forcing a stim, however, and killing whatever amount of Marines. The Warp Prism is still alive. Panicked for a little second there. And herO is trying everything he can to buy time and add little bits of damage. But he really has not done enough. This, unless you're max packs, we really can view the 4-gate in its very old-fashioned form. The 4-gate before max packs perfected it, if it didn't win the game, it basically lost the Protoss the game. It was that simple. And then max packs kept on throwing wrenches into it. But everyone else who tries to do a 4-gate and doesn't win with it basically loses immediately afterwards. Kind of the original, I guess, explanation of the 4-gate was that it was pretty all-in. And it's not looking so great for herO. He doesn't have Storm, so I feel like I can't be blamed for assuming it was going to be Storm. Did he forget about it? He's just using for an Archon now. GuMiHo might now be wary of Storm and a little overly cautious because it's not actually here, but it looks like herO is going to make the decision easy, just fight him, and GuMiHo is more than happy to fight him. Until he sees a High Templar drop out of that Warp Prism, he's got nothing to fear. Immortal goes down, second Immortal will also go down. Apparently the bug on the Immortal is that when its Hardened Shield is up, it can take an infinite amount of damage. SEV pull is an excellent decision against someone who actually does not have AoE. This is a perfect addition to GuMiHo's attack, in which the attack was already pretty promising to win the game in the first place. This Immortal will not last forever, and herO has decided that base trade is the best case scenario, and it certainly is. Something to make the game weird. Tank goes down, Bio is needing help from the SCVs. GuMiHo is not going to have an economy after this, but really neither is herO, as another Immortal pops out, has its barrier popped by an SCV, and ultimately is not particularly helpful. GuMiHo will be forced to lift his buildings, but that's the good news, he can. And the other good news is that GuMiHo is still winning the actual fight. Army supply is starting to even out as a couple of High Templars get warped in, but the effectiveness, the compositions between the two would favor the Terran, especially with the SCV still being pulled into the potential upcoming fight. The Archons were warped in on the side of the army, not back at home where they would be pretty much useless. It looks like another Immortal was left at home, was produced at home, and that also goes down. So GuMiHo managing to stay ahead just a little bit, bearing over some of his own reinforcing units to make sure that they're involved in whatever fight may happen, and it should happen, unless herO loses every single building. No, he has a Nexus down in the bottom left. Okay, so the fight will be the determining factor here. The fight will happen. GuMiHo will 90% win it. Always gotta leave room for something weird to happen. And then the game will be over. I do not see a world in which herO manages to successfully rebuild a Nexus and his economy, although he did just save some probes. So he'd be mining a decent amount. He'd be saturated on the Nexus when it finishes, to be fair. But he has no production, so that doesn't really mean much. Whereas GuMiHo is able to save 1 command center, 4 barracks, probably 3 barracks, and a starport at the very least. Factory is usually one of the more ideal structures to have up and running, but I don't think it matters. Going back to that old chestnut, that doesn't really matter. I refuse to believe we're going to get into a game in which it's about who recovers the base trade faster. It's about push coming to shove. GuMiHo doesn't know where his opponent's Nexus is, so it's going to take a little while, but he is chasing the Protoss army, which is heading back to its base. Maybe hoping that the shield battery, no, he didn't build a shield battery for his time. X4 died. Maybe hoping that this one cannon will do the trick. It's better than nothing. That is a lot of very good Terran army coming through here, healed up, although the medevacs are now out of juice. 3 Archons would be excellent if there was a shield battery. Without it, I'm afraid it won't be enough. SCVs do their job blocking the shots from the Zealots and a couple shots from the Archons. Warp Prism Micro to try and save the day, but it's pretty much impossible against the overwhelming number of bio units. Injured as they are, 1 Colossus would have went to town. It is still good enough for GuMiHo to win the battle and win the game, as these are the last few buildings of herO. He will be revealed, and that pylon will go down next. GG. GuMiHo brings us to a game number 5. All tied up here in map number 5. It is pronounced Hecate. Hecate, I hate the map makers. Gosh, Hecate. Top right, herO. Bottom left, GuMiHo. I was so skeptical at game number 5 because game number 3 was technically won by herO. I swear to God. If that pylon didn't depower every single building in the natural. Then Hecate, a funny word, really leaning into the Greek mythology. You know, I miss learning about locales, you know, beaches around the world, or King Sejong. More people need to know about King Sejong, and King Sejong Station helps to educate the masses. There's only so much I can really learn from Greek myths that are really all that interesting. It feels like kind of the basic bitch of like mythological history that you can know, you know what I mean? It's the type of thing that some people are like, I guess that's interesting, but I don't really care. And then every once in a while you say it to someone who then proceeds to spend 5 hours talking about Greek mythology and you're like, oh God, what did I get into? King Sejong did something. That's all I'm saying. They're these mythological creatures. For those of you who don't know, King Sejong created the Hangul alphabet system. The easiest form of writing to learn. Yeah, no, I definitely, I guess if I had to choose, I'd prefer them continuing to go with Greek and Roman names compared to some of the entirely unpronounceable Aztec mythology names. That's very true. I spent most of my time playing Final Fantasy VIII just pronouncing Quetzalcoatl. Is that how you pronounce it? It's just like Quetzalcoatl. The lightning thing. Another 1-Rax expand. Oh, this actually is a factory expand. GuMiHo's been almost teasing it for this best of 5. Finally does it. herO did not go for his thorough probe scout this time. He evacuated as soon as he saw it was a factory expand. Although, once again, you know, this could have been a fake. He left before we even scouted the gases, but whatever. If he assumes it's a factory expand, he is correct. We have our first early game, very early game Cyclone. Are we gonna have more? Oh my God. GuMiHo, now full of confidence, is going to try to abuse the patch. Now, I can tell you, I have done this against Protoss. The initial wave of Cyclones is a little tricky for the Protoss to defend because Protoss don't have a lot of units in the early game. That's kind of the consequence of their unit race design. But the Cyclones, with their, you know, having to traverse the entire map, generally don't snowball. As long as the Protoss doesn't lose the first, and then the second, and then the third, and then is warping into the Cyclone shots, they'll overwhelm faster. Defender's advantage kicks in. I'm far more interested in seeing any type of factory proxies against Protoss than I am about seeing this. But then here's what happens after that, right? So very, very initially, the Cyclones are scary. Almost immediately after, the Protoss wins on defender's advantage. And then a little bit after that, if the Terran is still producing Cyclones, which herO just checked, the amount of Cyclones becomes comical. You just don't expect the type of Cyclone production that they are now given, now that they're cheaper to produce. They're the same cost as the Stalker, and they can be reactored. So that's when it gets a little crazy, because the Protoss player might think, well, I have Blink, and so I have map control, so come at me. And then the Terran player is like, yeah, you didn't think I had 20 Cyclones, you thought I had 10. Which is kind of happening here. I feel like I've called this very correctly. 2 more factories are on the way. GuMiGod is going to GuMiMech against Protoss. So far, so good. We have reached that point in which the Protoss is more surprised by the amount of Cyclones. This will be figured out. I mean, I don't think this is going to happen the entire time. But, yeah. I think making Mech versus Protoss viable was a terrible decision. And the way in which they have done it is basically to give you a great all-around single unit to mass that is mobile and more marine-like than it is mech-like. So they basically just made Bio 2.0. In which case, why even bother? But whatever, man. DTs are on the way from herO off of 2 bases, first and foremost. Blue Flame, gonna be canceled. Not the most important thing, though. Cyclone so far doing the trick. I don't think Cyclones are going to be good enough versus Mech. The special comes in with his explanation. I'm annoyed by the philosophy of the attempt, not the results. I don't think Mech is going to work out versus Protoss, and I think it was dumb of him to try. herO doing the general stalker versus Mech thing, though, so far, as he has now understood the amount of Cyclones that can be available. DTs are going to come in. We do have a missile turret on the way, as I was already revealed, after all. He was able to scan the first one. The second one will be taken care of, and the third one also will eventually be taken care of. Is one thing that's GuMiHo is not lacking. It is the amount of units. He can also spread his units around a little bit, although he is starting to lack a bit more every single time the stalkers blink in or run in and then blink out. Charge is on the way. DT Blink is on the way. This actually is kind of a legit plan. herO has been experimenting with faster DT Blink even against Bio, but it's kind of legit. You blink behind the Cyclones to actually kill them. Blue Flame once again on the way. You can get those Hellions across the map eventually. But you need to solidify your base back at home, and I'm not sure that's actually happened here. 1 tank on the high ground with the Cyclones would be that difference. There, the tank pops. The barracks has gone down, though. GuMiHo will need to rebuild that before he rebuilds further factories. And it's going to be a while before he can successfully take the 3rd base. Hellions did make their way across the map. There are a couple of units reinforcing for the Protoss, but 9 probes already down. It's pretty good for pure mineral harassment. And 1 more shot. Not quite. 10 probes, as I said, pretty good. More importantly, they were forced back. They got the Cyclone upgrade on the way now. But again, I'm worried that GuMiHo has already lost too much. Really needed those tanks to anchor the Cyclones, and then vice versa, you know. Mesh synergy. Focus fires the tanks first and foremost. And the Cyclones will be able to do their full maximum amount of damage, but at the end of the day, the Warp Prism's here. And that will indeed be it. herO will win against the attempted Mech of GuMiHo. I'm glad you tried it. Way to go, man. But it's not it. Mech works. Mech doesn't work. Either way, I think focusing on the Cyclone to do it is just not good design. Not good. I don't like it. But I love that GuMiHo tried. Thanks, GuMiHo. But herO will indeed win this best of 5. Stop the reverse sweep. And be the king of this week's KSL. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed watching some of the newness of the patch. I think most of us are just mostly enjoying the newness of the maps. We finally got ourselves one clear evidence of patch being used. It's going to be perfected. It's going to be improved. I think we're going to see some more sharp timings and cheeses and better control and better situation reading, and everything goes along with any type of patch or expansion that's popped out in StarCraft. But I really don't like the design philosophy. That's the community balance thingy, whatever they want to call it. The Balance Council has put forth. That's one woman's opinion. Did you guys like it? Did you hate it? let me know. And I'll see you later for some more new patch StarCraft as soon as it's available. Hopefully on Korea and Europe very soon. Bye, guys.